Hey everyone, this is another rapid demo of Supabase, and this time it might not be so rapid just because we've got so much to get through. If you didn't already know, we did a launch week last week, and this is where we launched one thing every day for a week. I'm going to go over each item in depth in this video, but I'll just do a quick summary here for the first minute, and you can also go away yourself and then dig into each item. So for Monday, we launched our pricing. You can find this on our pricing page, which is just supabase.io/pricing, and I'll come back to that soon. We also launched storage, one of our biggest features and one of our most requested features. I'll show you how to use storage now after I've gone through each of these items. We also launched our CLI. This is useful for local development. It's useful for self-hosting, and also we're starting to build a migrations mechanism that will help to transition between local development and production. On Thursday, we actually launched two things. We launched an April Fool's joke, which was an NFT platform that's on our blog, and we also launched our UI library, which is the start of many things to come. We're just starting off with the components, but you can imagine that there is a lot of UI still to push out into the open source sphere, so we'll be starting with this and iterating on it. Then finally, on Friday, we had one more thing, except it was three more things. We launched PG Bouncer, a connection pooler, and I'll talk more about that soon. We announced the workflow engine that we're building as part of our functions release, and also we are moving to supabase.com very soon over the next 1 week, so all the URLs will be updating. There's nothing that you need to do here, it's just a heads up that the domain name will be changing, and you can go away and read inside this blog post a bit about our origin story, why we called the platform Supabase. Okay, so now that that's over, let's dig into each of the items and see how you can use each one. So I'm going to start with storage. If you come in and visit any one of your projects, either an existing one or a new one inside Supabase, you'll see that there is a new icon here called storage. Now storage is for storing files, and these are large files. There'll be things like images, audio clips, anything which is too big to store inside your database itself. And if I click into here, you'll see this new screen, and it looks empty, but until I select a bucket. Now a bucket is just a way to organize files. It's sort of like a folder, but a top level folder. You can create new buckets here, so I'm going to say new bucket here. I'll give it an ID called new bucket, and this we can actually put policies and security around the buckets, so it's just one way of organizing things. I've got an existing bucket here called avatars. This is a very classic use case for files, and inside it I'm going to store some user profile pictures, and I've got a folder here called public. Now folders are just like folders on a desktop computer. You can use them to organize your files. So for example, if I click off here, I might create a new folder called private, and I could store my private photos inside this one and put policies around this folder. I'll talk more about policies shortly. So let's dig into the public folder. You can see I've actually got we've got some images already. We've got some cat images, and to upload a file, I can actually just click on this and upload any sort of file that I want, and we'll upload that one, or we might upload even I believe I've got one, a GIF. There you go. And then you can see a preview on the right hand side. I know my computer is hiding it, but you can copy the URL and you can download the picture directly from here. The other neat thing is that you can select all, you can download them, you can delete them all. It's very advanced. We've worked very hard on this UI to make it very user friendly, and we've got a lot of nice things to come. Possibly by the time this video is released, there will be drag and drop uploads as well. So go check out this storage. Let us know what you think up in this feedback widget, because we're super excited to release it. The other thing before I get into policies is that you can switch between multiple views. So if you don't like this column view, you can use list view, and this is a classic sorting by time, sorting by date, or file name. There's a lot of improvements to come. We had to rush this out, a lot of the stuff, but I'm really happy with the functionality, and the teams worked really hard, so we'd love your feedback on what you think of storage. Now, the neat thing about storage is that we've tightly integrated it with your Postgres database. So each one of these buckets and each one of the folders, the mechanisms, the metadata for the file, they're all stored inside your Postgres database. The cool thing is that you can actually now use the same policy editor for securing your files and your buckets. If you recognize this screen, it's the same one that we have for our authentication screen. So if I came here and you can put policies using SQL, this is because it's Postgres row-level security. We've enabled Postgres row-level security even on the file storage layer. So this is very cool. You basically use SQL anywhere you want. I'm not going to show how to do some of these policies, but there are plenty of code snippets in our docs. And the other thing is we've got a full blog post outlining the architecture, some of the decisions around, why we went with the UI, why we went with, designing our own middleware tier, why we didn't choose an existing open source tool, and a bunch of other design decisions. So go check out the blog post. It's very detailed, and start playing around with storage and let us know what you think. Okay, the next one is PG Bouncer. Now, for those who don't know what PG Bouncer is, it's a connection pooler. Basically, here is a very simple diagram, and PG Bouncer, first of all, is useful for certain use cases. It's useful in almost all use cases, but in particular for serverless environments. Now, the problem, or one of the things about Postgres that you need to know, is that when you establish a connection, every connection itself it starts a new process, and this can be resource intensive on the database, and it can be a bit slow to establish the connection itself. So for serverless environments, usually you've got an API server. For example, our own, if you use our APIs, we have a server in between, which is basically protecting your database against multiple connections getting started. Now, we have a lot of developers using Supabase who actually don't want to use our APIs. They just want to use the Postgres database, which we think is absolutely fine. We just want to promote Postgres as much as possible. So, this is a bit of a problem if you're using a serverless tool. A classic one is Prisma. A lot of people want to use Prisma with Supabase, and what happens is that you deploy your code to a serverless, a Lambda, a cloud, Google Cloud function, and when it tries to connect to your Postgres database, it ends up establishing a connection, and then when it disconnects, it has to release those resources. This is slow and it doesn't scale very well. So what you want is essentially something to manage the connections for serverless itself, and this is what PG Bouncer does. Basically, it establishes the connection and it keeps them open and active, and then the serverless environment can connect to PG Bouncer. Now, the nice thing is that if Postgres runs out of connection, it's got certain limits. You can increase the limit or decrease the limit. If it runs out of connections, let's say you have the limit to 100 and you try to connect 101 serverless functions simultaneously, the last one will get rejected. It will not connect. Now, PG Bouncer can solve this. Basically, it won't outright reject the connection, and instead it'll queue them up. It's sort of like it will handle it by queuing the transactions. Now, I'm grossly simplifying exactly what's happening here. We've got a blog post on PG Bouncer, and we'll be doing a lot more testing, a lot more documentation around PG Bouncer. But check it out, and I'll show you how to find it inside the dashboard. So all you need to do is come to your database. Now, I'm going to say that this will probably move from the database level to the settings level. We just had to quickly rush it out, and it was easier to put inside the database. So here you can come to connection pooling, And you'll see here you've got a some connection info. This one, don't worry, I'm going to delete this database after I've done it, but you can't see the password anyway. So you can just use this connection exactly like you would have used on your other database connection. So instead of using this one 5432, which is a direct connection to the Postgres database, you can then use the pool here, which is 6543 under the same domain name. And there are a bunch of things that we're missing here. For example, how you do your pool mode, session statements, the pool size. There's a lot of configuration which we'll be releasing over the next couple of weeks, but this is just to get things rolling. You can test it out. You can give us some feedback whether it's working or not, especially if you're using Prisma. Give it a go, let us know what you think, and we'll optimize the default configuration for the most common use cases, and we'll also do a bunch of benchmarking to make sure that we can improve this. If there's anything that we can do as well to improve this, just drop it in the feedback widget or email us at beta@supabase.com. Okay, the third item that I wanted to talk about is nothing on the dashboard, but it is our CLI. Now this one's cool because it's just a start, and this is how we like to do things. We rush things out, but the CLI makes it super easy to use Supabase locally. Now the nice thing is that we are using Docker Compose. You'll need to install Docker and Docker Compose if you're going to develop locally on Supabase. But the nice thing is the configuration for the Docker Compose is exactly the same project configuration that we have for your production project. It comes with a full Postgres database. It has the Postgres server, Kong. It uses the storage. Well, storage is coming soon to the local, but everything has got GoTrue, Auth, and as we continue to add tools, we'll keep adding it to the local emulator, but it's really not an emulator. It is literally the same configuration that you have on your production project. So this is a good start. You can use Supabase locally, and it's very simple. You just install this. Soon we'll put in some other installation mechanisms like Brew or apt. And then as a small example, here's how I would use it with a React app. I would just start my React app. I could initialize Supabase, and you just run Supabase init. And here it'll ask you for a URL port for the API and a database port. If you are using Postgres locally on your local machine, please don't put 5432. Use another port because we've already had a few bugs. We might even default this to a different port or ping the port to see if it's in use. Now, once you've done that, you'll see everything else is just as familiar as what you've got for your production database. You can literally just copy and paste it'll spit out an anon key that you can use here, and a public and a service role key. You can use that, and then you literally just run Supabase start to start the local development environment, and then when you're finished, you run Supabase stop. It's really simple. Now, the other thing that we are going to do is build in database migrations. So I won't dig into database migrations too much if you don't know what they are, but it's roughly that you can you can make changes to your database, and then you can manage those changes and put them into your version control, ideally. So I won't dig into this much because it's a huge topic and we're going to do a lot of stuff here, but one thing to point out is that we are going to do it in a special way using diffs, and we have actually forked the default tool which is recommended with Postgres, pgadmin. pgadmin actually has a schema diff tool, and it's GUI only, so we've forked it to allow it to be used inside our CLI. Now the nice thing is it looks like that the pgadmin team are going to even allow us to upstream it at some point if we are willing to maintain it, so we'll work with the team there to see if we can get that into pgadmin as a CLI tool, which would be cool because it benefits everyone. And then finally, we have some self-hosting, and it's basically as simple as using the CLI and doing Supabase eject. Now, we also have some docs on how to do this manually. If you jump into our our documentation, you'll see that there is a new guide for self-hosting. Now, both the local development and the self-hosting guides are they're very new. So please, if you're stepping through these, please record your steps and also help us improve. Just make a small pull request to these documentations, and it will benefit everyone. Okay, so that's the CLI. Now the next one is our pricing. This one's very easy to find. Just go to supabase.io/pricing. And the first thing to call out is that we have a free tier. This is one of the things that almost everyone who is using Firebase told us is amazing, and that they really needed it because a lot of people are just developing their hobby projects. They're not too sure when they're going to release their own production environments. So we have also included a free tier inside our pricing plan. We have some sort of limits, so I won't go into each one of them, but basically it's a storage limit on your database, 10,000 users for auth, storage, file storage up to 1 gig, and transfer limits up to 2 gig. This is per month, per project. Also, there is a limit of two free projects per organization, and you're allowed 2 organizations. So basically you can have 4 free projects. The other thing is that if they are free projects and you're not using them for a week, we'll actually pause them. So we don't want to have servers running in the background if they are not being used. So we'll put them on pause, and when you come back, then you can start them up again. Now our Pro tier is $25 a month, and this has, I think it's very generous. Please do check it out, give us some feedback. Now it goes up to 100,000 users. I think if you compare this to all the existing plans, what you would have to pay for each individual service, for example, a database, an auth tool, a object storage or file storage, each one of these would cost you, I think, $25 at least. So our single tier, $25 just for each of these things, I think is very generous. And but please let us know what you think. We'd love to hear it. We're trying to gather as much feedback on this pricing as we can. Now the last one is the pay-as-you-go. Now this is usage-based pricing, and basically the way it works is you pay $25, and then everything else on top of the Pro tier is paid per use. So for example, you'd pay $25, and then if you had 10 gig of storage, we'd charge you 10 times 0.125 gigabytes of database storage. So this is how it works. Now, one of the things that we heard from a lot of developers is that they get stung by unexpected bills from Firebase. We have gone with a very predictable model. There is nothing that is going to catch you by surprise. It's very unlikely that your database space is going to blow up by 100 gigabytes overnight. Whereas, for example, some of the things around Firebase billing is that you might have API requests which explode because you're having users come in. You might have an infinite loop somewhere on your code. These are the type of things which are going to really cause a lot of pain for your Firebase billing. We are going to try avoid that by not putting usage tiers or usage pricing on anything that is going to give you a shock from day to day, and instead on slower growing expected items. And please do give us some more feedback on this and let us know what you think of the pricing. Pricing is going to be introduced basically today or tomorrow, and you'll start seeing it appear on your dashboard, and you'll be able to self-serve your pricing. You don't need to contact us or anything, but we'd love to chat to you. If you need custom databases, then reach out to us, and we will sort them out for you. And we'd love to contact you we'd love to chat to you about how you're using Supabase and what you have in store. Okay, now I think the final one is that we have released a UI library. Now, Supabase UI is what we actually use internally for developing our dashboard. Now, a lot of people ask, why isn't our dashboard open source? And the truth is that we actually started building the dashboard when it was just Ant and myself, and we didn't really know whether we would be we didn't actually know if people would like what we were building, so we were just hacking away and trying to push out as much as we could. Now all the usage, all the billing, all the security, everything, all the APIs, it's all tied into this dashboard, and we actually couldn't release it in the public without a lot of effort. So what we're doing is starting that effort. We're starting it with Supabase UI. If you've noticed little parts of the dashboard being upgraded, like these little widgets, some of these forms look a bit different, it's a little bit all over the place, that's because we're slowly migrating everything out to Supabase UI. And what we're going to do is, this is a React component library, you can use it yourself, it's going to have our own branding, you can see it's got light mode, which is one of our requested features, but also we're going to use this component library to build a lot of the tools around Supabase. So if you want to see the Postgres, the dashboard, you want to start using this Supabase dashboard within your local environment or within the self-hosting, please do check out ui.supabase.io or .com coming soon, and help contribute to this library, because the faster that this one moves, the faster that we can get the dashboard out for everyone. Now, one other thing to mention is that we just launched this on Product Hunt yesterday, and it actually was the #1 product of the day. So we'd love, if you see this in time, just go give it an upvote. One of our team members, Johnny, has been working super hard on this, basically by himself, and he would love the support and the support of the community, and just yeah, if you like what you see on our dashboard, please do go give that an upvote. Okay, then one more to reiterate, supabase.com is coming soon. It's going to be released. Well, you'll see the transition over the next couple of days. One thing to call out is your domains, your APIs are on supabase.co, and these will not change. We actually chose supabase.co because it benchmarks as one of the fastest domain names out of all of the domain names, so to resolve. So that's why we put it on supabase.co. We don't plan to change your API URLs. Just the only things that will update is the website. This will move to supabase.com, and also the dashboard app.supabase.io will become app.supabase.com, and all the other marketing tools will actually transition over. Okay, so that was a long one. If you've stuck with me this far, so far, then yeah, please do give some feedback, and thank you for listening. Thank you for everything that you've done to support Supabase for the past year. This launch week was mad. Thank you for everyone who supported us on Twitter, on Hack News, on the forums, on Reddit, everywhere. And we really look forward to building an awesome tool with all of you in the future. So please do check out the dashboard if you haven't seen it. Check out the new features, give us some feedback, and we'll see you again next month.